Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in medieval times? Maybe you imagine brave knights, majestic castles, and epic adventures. But forget all that. Today, you're going to discover the real medieval life. And believe me, there's nothing glamorous about it. This is the story of one day in the life of a medieval peasant. An ordinary, mundane day, full of hardships that will make you grateful you were born in the modern era. And you? Would you be able to survive this hellish routine? Let's find out together. If you can stay awake until the end. 5 a.m., more or less. Nobody has clocks anyway. Cock-a-doodle-doo! And there goes that damn rooster again. You wake up on what should technically be your bed, but which is actually a pile of stinking straw that looks like it's been trampled by a herd of wild boars. Your eyes open slowly, and the first thing you see is a coin-sized spider descending right onto your face. "Good morning to you too, Lady Ariadne," you mutter, because yes, you've already named all the spiders in your house. They're practically your only roommates. And at least they don't snore like your neighbor Godofredo. You try to move, but your body is stiffer than rusty armor. Every joint cracks like dry twigs, and you're sure some new muscle decided to exist just to hurt. Your back? Your back feels like it's been used as an anvil by the village blacksmith. The straw from your luxury bed sticks to your sweaty skin, and you feel little tickles all over your body. These aren't cute tickles, no. They're fleas having their morning feast on your blood. You're basically a walking buffet for these little critters. At least someone's eating well around here, you sigh, scratching a particularly irritating bite on your leg. Now comes the hardest part, getting out of bed. And look, this is a complex military operation. First, you need to gather courage. Then, count to 3. Then, in a heroic movement that would deserve an epic song, you throw yourself upward as if you were escaping from a fire. Crack! There goes your neck. Pop! Now it was your knees. Ah! And that was you screaming because you stepped on a cold stone. Your bare feet touched the packed dirt floor of your humble dwelling. Floor is a euphemism. It's more like a lunar surface full of craters, sharp little stones, and some mysterious holes that you suspect are the work of rats. Speaking of rats, you hear a squeak coming from the corner. It's Romualdo, your unofficial pet mouse. You greet him with a wave. "Hey there, Romualdo. Sleep well?" Because I definitely didn't. Now it's time for your morning hygiene routine, which is basically a medieval version of Chinese torture. You drag your feet to the wooden bucket that contains what can generously be called water. This water has a coloration that's somewhere between brown and gray, with some floating particles that you prefer not to identify. The smell? Imagine a mixture of rusty iron, rotten wood, and that particular aroma of, "This water has been sitting for way too long." You plunge your hands into this magic potion and... Jesus Christ! It's colder than your mother-in-law's heart. Your teeth start chattering involuntarily, and you have to make a superhuman effort not to let out some curse words that would make the village priest have a heart attack. "Okay, let's take it easy," you convince yourself. It's just cold water. You've been through worse, like yesterday morning. You bring your wet hands to your face and... ploft! The water runs down your arms, soaking your tunic, which was already questionable, and dripping on the floor. Each drop that touches your face seems to awaken neurons that were hibernating. There's no soap, obviously. Soap is for rich people. You have to be content with rubbing your skin with your own hands, trying to remove at least the most superficial layer of dirt. It's like trying to clean a pig with a napkin. Theoretically possible, practically useless. While you wash yourself, and I use the term very liberally, you can hear the morning sounds of the village waking up. Cock-a-doodle-doo! The rooster still hasn't given up. Moo! The cows complaining about life. Oink! Oink! The pigs being more hygienic than you. Distant shouting. Someone fighting with their spouse, probably about who's going to feed the chickens. You finish your hygiene by wiping your hands on your own clothes, because towels are luxury items that haven't reached your postal code. Your tunic is now slightly less dry, but not necessarily cleaner. Looking in the small piece of polished metal that serves as a mirror, you see your distorted reflection. You look like a scarecrow that went through a storm and was attacked by a flock of vengeful birds. Irresistible, you mutter sarcastically. The village maidens are going to faint with passion when they see me. Theated. Now it's time for what nobles would call breakfast, but which in your reality looks more like a session of culinary masochism. On your morning buffet, you have limited options. Hard bread, very hard bread, raw onion, if you were lucky, questionable water, more hard bread. The bread is so hard it could be used as a weapon of war. Seriously, you could defeat a Saxon invader with one of these medieval baguettes. They have the consistency of sedimentary rock and the taste of, well, sedimentary rock. You grab a piece and try to take a bite. Tock. Your teeth make a worrying sound. You look at the bread suspiciously. Did it bite you? Okay, let's try a different approach, you reason. I need to soften this brick disguised as food. You soak the bread in the questionable water from the bucket. The water penetrates the bread at the speed of drying paint, but eventually the outer crust starts to soften. The result is a sticky paste that looks like clay and tastes like disappointment. You chew slowly, very slowly. Each bite is an exercise in patience and determination. You imagine this must be what it feels like to be a cow ruminating, but at least cows have an extra stomach to deal with this situation. If you were lucky, and lucky here is relative, you also have an onion, a small onion, kind of withered, that looks like it's seen better days. You cut it with a knife that's blinder than a bat, resulting in irregular pieces and many injuries to your fingertips. The first piece of raw onion enters your mouth and, Holy Mary! It's like someone threw acid in your eyes and mouth at the same time. Tears stream down your face, not from emotion, but from pure chemical pain. How delicious, you say with a choked voice, natural seasoning. While your mouth burns and your eyes water, you contemplate the day ahead. Hours and hours of manual labor under the scorching sun, with only this nutritious meal to sustain your strength. You take one last bite of the soggy bread and swallow with difficulty. Your stomach receives the food with the enthusiasm of someone receiving an overdue tax bill. Well, you get up. At least I can't say I didn't eat. Now I just have to hope this doesn't kill me before lunch. Now it's time to head to your workplace, the field. And what an epic journey this is going to be. A 2-kilometer walk that will make you feel like an adventurer setting off for unknown lands. First, you need to gather your work tools. A hoe that looks like it was forged during the Stone Age, a sickle that cuts less than a dessert spoon, a wooden plow that weighs more than a dead horse, your own hands, which will soon be raw. Carrying all this is like doing medieval gym. You put the hoe on your right shoulder, the sickle on your left, and drag the plow behind you, like it's a very, very heavy dog that doesn't cooperate. Drag, drag, thump, drag, drag, thump. The sound of the plow hitting the stones on the path creates a morning symphony that awakens all the animals in the region. Birds fly away scared. Cows moo indignantly. And you're sure you heard a chicken curse. The path to the field is an adventure in itself. There's no road in the modern sense. There's a trail that's been trampled by generations of equally unlucky peasants. It's full of sharp stones strategically positioned to hurt your feet, sneaky holes that appear out of nowhere to twist your ankle, sticky mud that sucks your sandals like quicksand, various animal droppings, you learned to identify them by smell, occasional low branches positioned at the exact height to hit your forehead. With each step, you need to dodge a different obstacle. It's like a medieval video game. Except, if you lose, there's no continue. You just get hurt. Step, dodge the stone. Step, jump the hole. Step, slip in the mud. Thump, fall on your butt. Perfect, you grumble, cleaning mud off your clothes. Another fashion look to impress everyone. On the way, you meet other peasants going to their respective fields, all with the same facial expression, resignation mixed with existential questioning. It's like a parade of people who lost a bet with destiny. "Good morning, Oswaldo," you shout to your neighbor. "If you say so," he responds without much enthusiasm. Morning conversation between peasants is always uplifting. "You, how was the night?" Oswaldo, "The fleas left me alone for 2 whole hours." You, "Lucky, mine partied until dawn." Oswaldo, "At least you have company." While you walk together, sharing your misadventures, the sun starts to rise on the horizon. And when we say rise, we mean prepare to turn your life into a personal hell for the next 12 hours. You feel the first ray of sun touch your face and think, "Ah, how nice, a little morning warmth to start the day well." 5 minutes later, "My God, someone turned the sun into an oven and pointed it at me." Finally, after a journey that seemed to last 3 geological eras, you arrive at your field. And what a spectacle awaits you. Imagine terrain that looks like it was bombed by meteors, then trampled by dinosaurs, and finally used as a training ground by an army of trolls. The soil is a mixture of earth hard as concrete, stones sharp as razors, and weeds that grow more vigorously than your hope of having a better day. Ah, home, sweet home, you sigh, contemplating your property. At least the view is terrible. You let your tools fall to the ground with a satisfying clank and make a strategic analysis of the terrain. Where to start? Everything seems equally impossible to work. It's like choosing which tooth you want the dentist to pull first. The sun, which just minutes ago was a friendly presence, has now decided to cosplay as a fire-breathing dragon. Its rays hit your uncovered head with the intensity of a hammer forged in hell. You pick up the hoe and raise it with the solemnity of a knight wielding his sword. Except instead of setting off for a glorious battle, you're setting off for a war of attrition against underground roots that seem to be connected directly to the center of the earth. Thunk! The first blow of the hoe on the soil produces a sound that's half satisfying, half terrifying. The tool penetrates about 2 centimeters into the earth before hitting something solid. Very solid. "Rock," you mutter. "Of course it's a rock. Why wouldn't it be?" You reposition the hoe and try again. Thunk. Another rock. Thunk. A root the size of a broom handle. Thunk. Something that could be a rock, a root, or the bones of some previous peasant who gave up on life. After 10 minutes of intense work, you manage to make a hole approximately 30 centimeters square and 5 centimeters deep. At this rate, you'll prepare the entire field in, carry the zeros, approximately 47 years. Excellent, you celebrate sarcastically. At the current pace, my great-grandchildren will be able to plant here, if I can find someone crazy enough to reproduce with me. The sweat has already started its epic journey through your body. First, it appears discreetly on your forehead, like a polite visitor. Then it invites friends from your arms. Next, the whole back family joins the party. And before you know it, your entire body is more soaked than a sponge on a rainy day. And the interesting thing about medieval sweat is that it doesn't evaporate gracefully like in movies. No, it mixes with the dirt that sticks to your skin, creating a human mud paste that serves as a magnet for any insect within a 5-kilometer radius. BZZZ, a fly decides your forehead is the perfect landing spot. BZZZ, now it's your arm that became a landing strip. BZZZZ, your neck just became an international air terminal. How nice, you mutter, trying to shoo away insects without dropping the hoe. At least someone's enjoying my company. 2 hours have passed, and you've waged a personal war against a particularly stubborn root. This root isn't just a root. It's clearly a tentacle of some underground malevolent creature that decided to ruin your day. The thing extends for meters under the earth, connected to other roots in an underground network of pure evil. Every time you cut one part, you discover it continues in another direction, as if it were a botanical hydra. Hack, hack, hack. Your sickle, which didn't cut much when it was new, is now blinder than justice in a corrupt country. You're basically trying to cut the root with a wooden spoon. Get out! Get out of here! You scream at the root, as if it would understand medieval Portuguese. I'm the human! You're the plant! I should be in charge! But the root doesn't care about your biological hierarchy. It remains firm, probably enjoying your frustration. You decide to change strategy. If you can't cut the root, you'll excavate it entirely. You grab the hoe and start digging around the damn thing. Dig, dig, dig. And the root keeps going down. After an hour, you've created a crater that looks like it was made by a small meteor. You're at the bottom of the hole, covered in dirt from head to toe, looking like a very unsuccessful human mole. And the root? Ah, it's still down there, silently mocking you. All right, root, you declare, panting. You won this battle, but the war isn't over. You climb out of the crater with the dignity of someone who just got defeated by a vegetable. At this moment, you hear laughter. Oswaldo, who works in the neighboring field, is having fun at your expense. Problems with gardening? He shouts, clearly enjoying your suffering. The root is possessed, you shout back. I'm going to call the priest to do an exorcism. Good luck, he responds. The priest is still trying to exorcise Mrs. Gertrude's chickens that started speaking Latin. This conversation reminds you that you're not the only one with weird problems in the village. Last week, the blacksmith woke up, and all his tools had turned left during the night. Nobody could explain it. But that's talk for later. Now you have to deal with your own vegetable drama. While you continue your epic battle against agriculture, the sun has decided it doesn't like you personally. It's not just shining, it's attacking you with directed heat rays. It's 10 a.m., and the temperature is already making you question your life choices. Your arms are red as cooked crabs. Your forehead looks like a battlefield between sweat and dust. And you're sure you can feel your skin gently frying. Should I bury myself in the earth to stay cooler? You ponder, looking enviously at the earthworms. They seem to have discovered the secret of life. There's no sunscreen in the 13th century. There's no decent hat. There's no portable shade. There's you, the sun, and an extremely toxic relationship between you two. To make it worse, you're starting to see things. Medieval mirages. You swear you saw a crystal-clear water fountain over there, but when you got close, it was just more dry earth and some stones arranged cruelly. The sweat is pouring so much that you've created small streams on the ground. You're basically a human irrigation system, except the water you're providing is salty and has a questionable smell. Drip, drip, drip. Each drop of sweat that falls to the ground makes a small ploft that echoes in your tired soul. You calculate that you've already lost approximately 15% of your body weight in liquids, and you haven't even reached lunch yet. "I need water," you croak, with the voice of someone who smoked a pack of cigarettes, which haven't been invented yet. Lots of water. Or beer. Beer would be better. But the only available water is that from the questionable bucket you left at home, and which is probably already fermenting in the sun and creating new forms of microscopic life. You look at the sky, searching for clouds. Nothing. Just infinite blue, and a sun that seems to be smiling maliciously at you. "Seriously?" you scream at the sky. "Not even a little cloud? Not a little breeze? Are you kidding me?" Your shouting scares a bird that was perched on a nearby tree. It flies away, probably thinking, "This human has completely lost it." But wait, something changed. You feel, "Is this right?" A breeze, a weak little wind, almost imperceptible, touches your soaked skin. It's as if angels descended from heaven to give a breath of relief to your miserable existence. "Hallelujah!" you scream, opening your arms to receive this divine blessing. "Wind! Wonderful wind!" The breeze lasts exactly 3 seconds. After that, the infernal heat returns, only worse now because you had a taste of what life could be. As if the sun wasn't enough, you now have to deal with the army of insects that decided you're the most interesting free buffet in the region. The flies arrived first. They appear as if they were summoned by an invisible signal. "Attention all units. Sweating human detected in Sector 7. Repeat. Walking buffet available." Ooh, they're not just flying around. They're doing low flights in your face, landing on your forehead right when your hands are busy, and seeming to laugh at your situation. BZZ in the left ear. BZZ in the right ear. BZZ right on the tip of your nose. "Get out!" you scream, swinging the hoe in the air like it was a sword. "I'm not food!" But your words fall on deaf ears, or rather, on deaf antennae. Soon after, the mosquitoes arrive. Ah, medieval mosquitoes. These little critters are turbocharged versions of modern mosquitoes. They're bigger, more persistent, and seem to have the bloodthirst of a Roman gladiator. You don't even feel the first one bite. You only feel the itch afterward, when it's already too late. An itch that starts gentle and intensifies until you feel like you have acid on your skin. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Now you're working and scratching at the same time. It's advanced medieval multitasking. But wait, it's not over yet. Now the bees have arrived, and medieval bees don't care about the environmental movement or their importance in the ecosystem. They just want to terrorize you. A particularly aggressive bee decides your ear is the perfect place for a detailed investigation. It enters the ear canal and stays there, making the sound of a broken airplane engine. Bzzzzzzzzz inside your head. "No!" you scream, shaking your head like crazy. "Get out of my ear! There's nothing interesting in there!" You start jumping, shaking your head, hitting your ear, all at the same time. Anyone watching would think you're having a very strange rhythmic seizure. Finally, The bee decides your ear isn't that interesting after all and flies away, leaving you dizzy and temporarily deaf on one side. Perfect, you mutter, trying to regain balance. Now I work with mono audio. And it doesn't stop there. There also arrived butterflies that aren't cute, they're annoying, beetles that make sounds like war tanks, spiders that appear out of nowhere to test your courage, worms that sprout from the earth like it's a horror movie, and some creatures you don't even know what they are, but definitely don't like you. You're officially at war with all the local fauna. Inevitably, what had to happen, happened. You cut yourself. It wasn't anything dramatic. It wasn't saving a maiden or fighting dragons. It was simply trying to cut a stubborn root when the dull sickle decided to slip and meet your hand. Slice. Ow! The cut isn't deep, but it's bleeding enough to look like you were attacked by a wolf. And it hurts like you were attacked by an entire pack. You look at your hand and see red flowing between your fingers. In 2023, you'd run to the emergency room, get anesthesia, receive some stitches, and go home with antibiotics. In 1300-something, you clean the blood on your tunic and keep working. Okay, it wasn't so bad, you try to convince yourself. It's just a little scratch. I've seen paper cuts worse. But then you remember that paper hasn't been invented yet. The situation gets interesting when the blood attracts more insects. Apparently, you've become a gourmet restaurant for the local fauna. The flies are lining up to try the special dish of the day. Peasant blood with notes of despair and hints of regret. You try to cover the cut with a piece of cloth torn from your tunic. But the cloth is so dirty, it will probably cause more infection than the wound itself. At least I can't get tetanus, you think, relieved. Then you remember that tetanus doesn't have a name yet, but the disease definitely already exists. Okay, I won't think about that, you decide. I'll think about positive things, like, at least I'm not dead. It's at this moment that you hear a distant roar. Either it was your stomach complaining, or there's a fierce animal approaching. Considering your luck today, it's probably a fierce animal hungry for wounded peasant. But no, it was just your stomach. And it's very angry with you for only giving it hard bread and raw onion at breakfast. The sound is so loud it scares away some birds. Your stomach is clearly planning an internal rebellion. Calm down there, folks. You talk to your internal organs. Lunch is coming soon, and it's going to be, well, it's going to be food, technically. Finally, the most anticipated moment of the morning has arrived. Lunch break. You drop your tools with the reverence of someone depositing sacred relics and head toward the scraggly shade of a tree that seems to have given up on life a few years ago. This tree is your dining room, your meeting office, and your relaxation spa all in one. Of course, shade is a generous term. It's more like a slightly less sunny area where you'll still fry, but at least not directly. See, you sit on what can be generously called ground, which is actually a collection of stones strategically positioned to cause maximum discomfort to any part of your body that tries to relax. Now comes the big moment, unwrapping your medieval lunchbox. You open the cloth that contains your banquet and, surprise, it's exactly the same thing you ate at breakfast, only now it's hotter, drier, and has attracted some curious insects. Today's menu is hard bread, now with perfected brick texture. More hard bread, for variety. An onion that looks like it's seen better days. Water you brought in a questionable container and now tastes like old leather. What a banquet, you mutter, worthy of a king. A very, very unlucky king. You grab the bread and do a detailed inspection. It definitely hardened even more during the morning. Now, it has the consistency of volcanic rock and could probably be used to build defensive walls. The strategy is the same. Soak in water to soften. You dip the bread in the questionable liquid and wait, and wait, and wait a little more. 5 minutes later, the bread absorbed the water and transformed into a paste that looks like ceramic clay and tastes like, well, probably ceramic clay too. While you chew slowly, because chewing fast might break your teeth, you observe the surrounding landscape. Other peasants are also taking their lunch break, all with the same expression of peaceful resignation. There's Godofredo, trying to break his bread with a stone. Further away, Lady Brunilda is negotiating with a goat that apparently stole part of her lunch. And in the field next door, you see Oswaldo in a heated discussion with a scarecrow. "You're scaring the wrong plants," he screams at the straw dummy. "The weeds are growing even more." You decide not to ask. The onion, when you finally gather courage to attack it, is even more pungent than the morning one. It's as if it spent the whole morning concentrating its evil. The first piece enters your mouth and whoosh! Your eyes start watering like waterfalls. Your nose runs like a broken faucet. Your mouth burns like you drank lava. "Damn!" you scream through tears. "This onion was blessed by the devil." The tears are falling so abundantly, they're creating small puddles on the ground. You look like you were attacked by a medieval tear gas cloud. Oswaldo looks in your direction and shouts, "First time eating Mrs. Gertrude's onion?" "She cultivates chemical weapons," you respond, still crying. "Yes," he confirms. "Last year, one of those onions made the priest cry during Mass." Useful information, but a little too late. Theoretically, after lunch would be the perfect time for a restorative nap. After all, you worked hard all morning under the scorching sun. Your body is exhausted, and a few minutes of rest would work miracles. Theoretically, in practice, trying to rest in the middle of a medieval field is like trying to meditate in the middle of a war zone. First, you try to get comfortable under your pet tree. You lie down carefully, trying to find a position where fewer stones are poking your ribs, and close your eyes. BZZZs. Fly number 1 decides your forehead is an interesting place to explore. BZZZ. Fly number 2 thinks your ear has tourist potential. Squawk. A bird landed right on top of your head. You open one eye and see a crow observing you with scientific interest. "What?" you ask the bird. "Never seen anyone trying to rest?" Squawk, which clearly means no, and I find it fascinating that you still try. You close your eyes again and try to ignore the local fauna. But then the neighborhood noises start. Oswaldo fighting with his tools. "Damn ho, you're doing this on purpose." Lady Brunilda singing some medieval song that seems to have been composed by someone in deep depression. A bull far away making a sound that suggests serious gastrointestinal problems. The wind making dry leaves dance in an irritating cacophony. You try to focus on relaxing thoughts. You imagine a calm, peaceful, silent place. Crash. Godofredo just dropped all his tools. "Sorry!" he shouts. "The plow escaped!" How exactly a plow escapes, you have no idea, but it definitely ended any chance of relaxation. You get up, accept defeat, and decide rest will have to wait. After all, you still have an entire afternoon of work ahead. "All right," you sigh. "Who needs rest anyway? Rest is for the weak and for the dead." If you thought the morning was difficult, prepare to discover it was just the warm-up for the real hell that is the afternoon in a medieval field. The afternoon sun isn't just hot. It has developed sadistic characteristics. It seems someone up there decided to use a giant magnifying glass to concentrate all solar rays specifically on your head. The temperature is so high, you swear you can see little heat waves dancing around your feet. The ground is so hot, your leather sandals started making worrying noises. Sizzle. Sizzle. Great, you mutter. Now I'm literally frying from bottom to top. But work doesn't wait. You grab your tools, which are now hot enough to cook an egg, and return to your epic battle against agriculture. By this point, you've started developing a personal relationship with each stone, each root, each stubborn piece of earth. That stone there? That's Brunilda, always in the wrong place. That root? That's Roberto, never comes out when it should. Thunk against Brunilda. Hack against Roberto. Arg against your sanity. The sweat isn't just dripping anymore, it's gushing like you're a human fountain. You calculate you've already lost approximately half your body weight in fluids and are seriously considering the possibility of turning into human raisins. Each movement now requires strategic military planning. Assess if it's worth lifting the hoe. Calculate if you have energy for the blow. Execute the movement with the precision of a drunk surgeon. Deal with the consequences, usually pain and more sweat. But the worst isn't even the heat or the work. The worst is that your body started making sounds. Crack, there goes the knee. Pop, there went the shoulder. Groan, that was you. Gurgle, your stomach commenting on lunch quality. You're becoming an orchestra of human suffering. Each movement produces a different sound, like you're a very poorly tuned musical instrument. Perfect, you grumble. Now I'm an anatomical xylophone. While you work, you notice you're not alone in the field. The local fauna decided to conduct a detailed investigation of your activities. First, a snake appears. Not a dangerous, venomous snake. That would be too easy. It's a small, harmless snake, but one that has perfect timing to appear exactly when you're concentrated on work. Saul Lither. You look down and see the little snake sliding between your feet, as if it's conducting a quality inspection of your work. Ah! You scream, jumping back and almost impaling yourself on your own hoe. Snake! Snake! The snake looks at you with that typical, what unnecessary drama expression and continues its morning stroll, completely uninterested in your existential crisis. Oswaldo, from the neighboring field, shouts, "It's just Serpentina. She's vegetarian." "I didn't ask about her diet," you shout back, still trembling. But Serpentina's visit is nothing compared to what comes next. Because now, a rat has arrived. Not a cute little mouse like Romualdo at home. This is a medieval rat who clearly has unresolved issues with humanity. It's the size of a small cat, has eyes that shine with pure malice, and is staring at you like you owe it money. The rat positions itself about 2 meters away and begins a detailed analysis of your person. You can practically hear its thoughts. This human looks edible, or at least part of him. "Go away, big rat!" you scream, trying to look threatening while holding the hoe like it's a spear. The rat tilts its head, clearly not impressed with your warrior performance. If rats could laugh, this one would be cackling. Then something even worse happens. The rat calls for backup. Squeak, squeak, squeak. And suddenly, 3 rats appear out of nowhere, as if they were summoned by black magic. Now you're surrounded by a gang of medieval rodents who clearly have nefarious plans. "This is not happening," you declare. "I'm not going to be defeated by rats." But the rats don't care about your motivational speech. They start approaching slowly, in perfect military formation. It's at this moment that you make a brave and strategic decision. You run. You completely abandon your position in the field and run off like you're being chased by demons. Which technically you are. If we consider giant medieval rats to be basically furry demons. Thump, thump, thump. Your feet hit the uneven ground of the field while you run in zigzags, trying to throw off your rodent pursuers. The hoe swings in your hands like it's a surrender flag. "Help!" you scream to no one in particular. "I'm being chased by killer rats." Oswaldo, from the neighboring field, stops working and shouts back, "First time?" "What do you mean, first time?" you respond without stopping running. "The rats always attack in September," he explains calmly, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "It's their season." "Nobody warned me about rat season," you protest, jumping over a particularly large stone. "It's on the medieval calendar," Oswaldo shouts, "right after snake season and before poisonous spider season." This information is not particularly useful at the moment, since you're too busy trying not to be devoured by rodents. You look back and see that the rats are no longer following you. In fact, they've returned to the field and are chewing your tools. "No!" you scream. "Don't eat my hoe. It's the only decent tool I have." But it's too late. The rats are having a feast with the wooden handle of your hoe, as if it were a giant toothpick. You stop running and stand panting, watching the vandalism happen from a distance. Your legs tremble, not just from exhaustion, but also from pure indignation. "This is theft," you declare. "Theft and vandalism." One of the rats looks in your direction and makes a gesture that, if you didn't know that medieval rats have no formal education, you'd swear was a middle finger. After a few minutes of recovery and strategic planning, you decide you need to recover your tools. After all, without them you can't work, and without working you don't eat. And you're already hungry enough, thank you very much. You cautiously approach the field, like a detective investigating a crime scene. The rats have finished their meal and are now resting in the shade of your mutilated hoe. "Folks," you say in a diplomatic tone, "let's talk like civilized adults." The rats look at you with interest, as if they'd never heard a human try to negotiate before. "You ate my tool," you continue, trying to stay calm. "And that's a problem. How do you intend to compensate for the damage?" The biggest of the rats, whom you decide to name Ratonio, makes a sound that can be interpreted as, "Not our problem, stupid human." "All right," you sigh. "Let's try a different approach. What do you want to let me work in peace?" Ratonio consults the other rats in a very serious whispered conference. After several minutes of deliberation, they reach a decision. One of the rats approaches and deposits something at your feet. You look down and see a stone, a common stone, the kind there are millions of in the field. "You want stones?" you ask, confused. The rats nod positively. Apparently, they are stone collectors. "Okay," you say slowly. "If I bring stones for you, you'll stop eating my tools and let me work?" More positive nods. "And you won't chase me anymore?" Ratonio makes a gesture that clearly means, "Depends on the quality of the stones." And so you become the first medieval peasant to establish a commercial agreement with rats. The contract, unwritten, obviously, since neither party knows how to read, is simple. You provide 5 interesting stones per day. The rats don't eat your tools. The rats don't chase you, except in cases of default. If you don't fulfill the agreement, they have the right to confiscate your shoes. The last item was added after Ratonio showed his sharp teeth in a very convincing manner. You spend the next 30 minutes collecting stones that could be considered premium in the rat market. You discover they prefer rounded stones, have an aversion to very small stones, and consider stones with small crystals as luxury items. "Who would have thought I'd become a stone consultant for rodents?" you mutter, while examining a particularly shiny stone. Once the agreement is established, you can finally get back to work. The rats retreat to a respectful distance and watch you work with the interest of union supervisors. Occasionally, Ratonio makes critical comments about your farming technique. You have the distinct impression that he's judging your performance. "You're doing it wrong!" Oswaldo shouts from the neighboring field. "You need to stroke their egos." "What do you mean, stroke their egos?" you shout back. "Tell them they're very beautiful and intelligent rats." You look at Ratonio, who clearly heard the conversation and is now staring at you expectantly. "You are a very beautiful rat," you say, feeling your dignity evaporate, "and clearly very intelligent." Ratonio puffs out his chest with pride and makes an approving sound. "And your fangs are impressive," you add, "because now you have nothing left to lose." The other rats begin to applaud, or at least do the rat equivalent of applauding. "Perfect," you sigh. "Now I'm the official clown of the rat colony." Working under the supervision of medieval rats is a unique experience. They take their supervisory function very seriously. Ratonio has assigned a rat to each aspect of your work. Roberto, yes, you gave them all names, supervises your digging technique. Geraldo monitors your body posture. Brunilda, apparently there are female rats on the team, evaluates the quality of the holes you make, and they all have very strong opinions about how you should do your work. Squeak, critical. "You're holding the hoe wrong." Squeak, squeak, impatient. "Faster, faster." Squeak, 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 disdainful. "My grandmother digs better than you." "I don't speak rat." You explode after a particularly long series of rodent criticism. The rats stop and look at you with pity. Clearly, they consider your lack of fluency in rat as a serious disability. Ratonio approaches and begins what appears to be a basic rat language lesson. "Squeak," he points to a stone. "Stone," you repeat. "Squeak, squeak," he points to the hoe. "Tool," you try. "Squeak, squeak, squeak," he points to you. "Stupid human," you venture. Ratonio nods approvingly. Apparently, you got it right. When lunchtime arrives, you discover that the rats also take a break to eat. And they're curious about human cuisine. You sit in the shade of your favorite tree and unwrap your usual meal, stale bread and bitter onion. The rats position themselves in a semicircle around you, as if they were about to watch a cooking show. You take the bread and soak it in water. The rats watch fascinated, as if you were a magician performing an incredible trick. "Squeak?" question. Ratonio clearly wants to know what you're doing. "It's to soften it," you explain. "Otherwise it breaks your teeth." The rats exchange impressed looks. Apparently, the bread softening technique is advanced technology in the rodent world. When you bite the onion and start crying, the rats become genuinely concerned. Brunilda approaches and makes consoling noises, as if you were an injured rat pup. "No, no," you explain through tears. "It's normal. The onion does this." The rats are even more impressed. You've just become the bravest, honorary rat in the colony for being able to eat something that makes you cry voluntarily. Ratonio offers to share their food with you. He drags over a root that appears to have been chewed by rats. "Thank you," you say politely, "but I'll stick with my food." The rats seem offended by your refusal of rodent hospitality. To avoid creating a diplomatic incident, you take a tiny piece of the root and chew. It tastes like dirt mixed with lost hope. Delicious, you lie, trying not to grimace. The rats are delighted. You've just cemented an international alliance between humans and rats through gastronomic diplomacy. After lunch, you return to work with your new supervisory team. But you soon discover that the rats aren't just critics. They're also extremely useful. Roberto points to an area of the field and makes a series of urgent squeaks. "What is it?" you ask. Roberto begins digging furiously in the earth. In seconds, he unearths a huge stone that you never would have seen. "Wow," you say, impressed. "Do you have X-ray vision or something?" Geraldo also starts helping, indicating where there are problematic hidden roots. In 1 hour, with the rats' help, you manage to clear more ground than you could in an entire day alone. "You're geniuses!" you exclaim. The rats practically swell with pride. But then you make a disturbing discovery. The rats know exactly where all the field's problems are because they live here. This entire land is basically an underground rat condominium. "Wait a minute," you say slowly. "You live underneath my field?" Retonio confirms with a nod. "And you know about all the problems because it's your home?" More confirmations. "And I'm basically renovating your house." Embarrassed silence from the rats. "Unintentionally," you add quickly. "I didn't know you lived here." The rats hold an urgent conference. After several minutes, Retonio approaches with a proposal. Apparently, they were planning to move anyway. The neighborhood was getting too noisy, blame the other peasants, and they had already found a better location several fields away. But, since you were polite and offered stones as payment, they're willing to help with the renovation before moving. It's a transition agreement, you understand. You help me prepare the field, and I help you with the move. The rats nod enthusiastically. Perfect. A genuine interspecies commercial partnership. What started as a rat invasion has transformed into the most efficient collaboration project of your peasant career. The rats proved to be specialists in underground obstacle detection root system mapping, problematic soil identification, weather forecasting. Apparently, Brunilda can sense rain coming 2 days in advance. You, in turn, offer brute force for heavy excavation tools, what's left of them, premium stones for their collection, entertainment. Your screams of pain are apparently hilarious. The collaboration is so efficient that other peasants start to notice. "Hey!" shouts Godofredo from the distant field. "How are you working so fast?" "Strategic partnerships," you shout back, while Roberto indicates where to dig. "With whom?" You look at the rats, who shake their heads vigorously. Clearly, they want to keep the operation secret. "Trade secret," you respond. Oswaldo approaches the border between the fields, clearly curious. "Do you have helpers?" he asks suspiciously. "Consultants," you correct. "Consultants specialized in, agricultural geology." Retonio makes an approving sound. He likes being called a consultant. "And where are these consultants?" Oswaldo asks, looking around. The rats quickly hid behind stones and plants. You're alone in the field, sweaty and dirty, clearly talking to thin air. "They're discreet," you explain. "They work under a regime of tactical invisibility." Oswaldo looks at you as if you've gone insane. "Right," he says slowly. "I'm going back to my field before the madness is contagious." As soon as he moves away, the rats come out of their hiding places, clearly amused by the situation. Squeak, 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 giggles. "You think it's funny, right?" you say. Now everyone thinks I'm crazy. Ratonio approaches and makes a consoling gesture as if saying, "You were always a little crazy, but now you're an efficient crazy." In the middle of the afternoon, the unthinkable happens. You commit a serious diplomatic gaffe. Everything was going well. You and the rats were working in harmony, like a symphony of interspecies cooperation, until you accidentally stepped on Roberto's tail. Squeak! Scream of pain and indignation. Roberto jumps like a spring and starts running in circles, holding his tail and clearly swearing in rat. The other rats stop everything they're doing and stare at you with expressions of shock and horror. "Sorry!" you scream. "It was an accident. I didn't see." But the damage is done. Roberto continues dramatizing his pain, staggering, and making theatrical gestures that would make a Shakespeare actor jealous. Ratonio approaches with the solemnity of a diplomat and makes a formal declaration in rat. You don't understand the words, but the tone is clear. This is a serious violation of our peace agreements. "I can compensate," you offer desperately. "More stones, better stones." The rats hold an emergency conference. You can hear indignant squeaks, calculating squeaks, and what sounds like a lawyer squeak explaining the legal terms of the situation. After a deliberation that seems to last forever, but was probably 5 minutes, they reach a verdict. Brunilda approaches carrying a tiny stone and places it in front of your feet. "You want me to step on the stone?" you ask, confused. More explanatory squeaks. Oswaldo, who was watching from a distance, shouts, "They want you to step on the stone to feel what Roberto felt." "How do you know this?" you shout back. "Rat justice is universal," he responds. "Eye for an eye, foot for foot." You look at the tiny stone, then at Roberto, who is still being dramatic. "All right," you sigh. "Justice is justice." You step on the stone. It's tiny and doesn't hurt at all. The rats protest vigorously. Clearly, you need to demonstrate more suffering. "Ah!" you scream dramatically. "It hurts so much. My foot. My poor foot." You start hopping on one leg, holding your foot, and giving the most exaggerated pain performance of your career. The rats watch critically, like figure skating judges evaluating your acting technique. Roberto, seeing your performance, decides it was adequate. He stops dramatizing and makes a magnanimous gesture of forgiveness. The diplomatic crisis is resolved. "Thank you," you sigh, stopping the hopping. "How about we get back to work?" The rats agree, but you notice they now walk a little farther from your feet. It was almost the end of the afternoon when something extraordinary happened. You were digging a particularly deep hole under Geraldo's strict supervision when your hoe hit something that definitely wasn't stone or root. Clank. The sound was different. Metallic? Interesting. "What is this?" you murmur, starting to dig around the object. The rats suddenly become very interested. They approach and start sniffing the air intensely. Roberto makes an urgent squeak and starts digging with you, his small paws moving earth with impressive speed. In a few minutes, you discover something incredible. It's an old metal pot, buried for who knows how long. "My God!" you exclaim. "It's an archaeological treasure!" The rats are absolutely fascinated. They've never seen so much metal together. You clean the pot and discover that, despite being old and rusty, it's still in reasonable condition for use. For someone who only had cracked wooden bowls, this is like finding the Holy Grail. "This is fantastic," you declare. "I'll be able to cook for real." But then you realize a problem. The pot was buried in land that technically belongs to the rats. You look at Ratonio, who is clearly thinking the same thing. So, you say diplomatically, this pot was in your house. Ratonio confirms with a nod, which means it technically belongs to you. More nods. But you're rats and don't cook. The rats have a quick conference. After some squeaks, Ratonio returns with a proposal. Apparently, they're willing to rent the pot to you in exchange for a monthly fee of 3 premium stones and occasional demonstrations of human cooking for educational purposes. A rental contract? You ask, impressed. You really thought of everything. It's the first interspecies lease agreement in medieval history. To celebrate the pot agreement, the rats insist on a cultural culinary exchange session. They bring their specialties: chewed roots, fermented seeds, and something that looks like mushrooms, but you suspect might be something else. You, not wanting to be rude, offer pieces of your softened bread and cut onion. The tasting is interesting. The rats try the bread with the solemnity of gastronomic critics. Roberto chews thoughtfully. Geraldo analyzes the texture, and Brunilda takes mental notes about the presentation. When they get to the onion, the reaction is immediate and universal. All the rats start sneezing and tearing up simultaneously. Achoo! 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 In chorus. Sorry, you say quickly. I forgot to warn about the side effects. But to your surprise, after recovering from the initial shock, the rats seem to like the sensation. Ratonio asks for more onion through enthusiastic gestures. You like crying? You ask, incredulous. Apparently, yes. For the rats, onion is like a gastronomic roller coaster, initially uncomfortable but exciting. In a few minutes, all the rats are sharing pieces of onion and crying happily together, as if it were a collective spiritual experience. You are officially the strangest rodents I've ever met, you declare. The rats accept this as a compliment. Your turn to try the rats' food is challenging. The chewed root has the texture of old gum and tastes like earth seasoned with hope. The fermented seeds make your mouth tingle in a way that's not entirely unpleasant. And the mushroom-talk mysterious thing has a flavor that can only be described as adventure. Interesting, you lie, trying not to grimace. Very unique. The rats are radiant with your diplomatic approval. As the sun begins to set, you realize you've accomplished more work in one day with the rats than in an entire week alone. The field is clean, organized, and ready for planting. The problematic stones have been removed, the stubborn roots have been exterminated, and the soil is properly prepared. Folks, you declare, this was the best work day of my career. The rats make approving and proud sounds, but now it's time for them to fulfill their part of the original agreement, moving to the new territory. Ratonio calls a general meeting of the rats. Within minutes, dozens of small heads appear from holes throughout the field. You had no idea how many rats actually lived there. Good Lord, you exclaim. You're a real underground metropolis. The moving operation is impressive to watch. The rats organize into transport teams, logistics groups, and even a security squad. You watch fascinated as they carry their belongings: stone collections, food reserves, small shiny treasures, and what appears to be miniature furniture made from twigs and leaves. You have an entire civilization down here, you observe admiringly. An elderly female rat, whom you assume to be the colony's grandmother, approaches and offers a small farewell gift, a special seed that, according to explanatory gestures, will grow very well in your newly prepared field. Thank you, Madam Rat, you say with reverence. I'll plant it very carefully. The grandmother rat makes an approving sound and gives you an affectionate little pat on the foot. With the move almost complete, Ratonio approaches for final farewells. Through a series of elaborate gestures and some emotional squeaks, he explains that, although they're moving, they'd like to maintain an ongoing commercial relationship. The proposal is as follows. You can continue using the rented pot. They'll visit occasionally to check the field's progress. In exchange, you'll reserve a small area for them to plant their own special crops. And, obviously, the monthly premium stone supply continues, a long-term agricultural cooperation agreement, you exclaim, with visitation rights and everything. It's basically the first international trade treaty between humans and rats in history. Roberto approaches to say goodbye personally. His tail is still a bit hurt, but he holds no grudge. He offers a small stone as a memento. "Thank you, Roberto," you say, moved, and sorry again for the stepping. Roberto makes a gesture that clearly means water under the bridge and gives you a small hug on the leg. Geraldo and Brunilda also come to say goodbye, each offering small gifts, a particularly tasty root and a rare seed. Finally, all the rats gather for a collective farewell. It's like a small ceremony with solemn squeaks and formal gestures. "It was an honor working with you," you declare. "You're the best agricultural consultants I've ever had." The rats give a round of applause, or the rat equivalent. And then, in an organized and dignified procession, they depart toward their new home, carrying their possessions and leaving behind a perfectly prepared field, and a peasant much wiser about the mysteries of interspecies cooperation. Alone for the first time in hours, you collect your tools, what's left of them, and the newly discovered pot, and begin the walk back home. The path seems different now, more familiar, more friendly. You look at each stone and wonder if it would be to the rat's taste. You observe each small hole and imagine if it could be the entrance to a rodent family. "I'll never see a rat the same way again," you murmur to yourself. "Who would have thought they're so civilized?" The pot swings on your arm as you walk, making a satisfying metallic sound. For the first time in a long time, you're excited about the culinary possibilities opening up before you. "I'm going to make soup," you decide. "Real soup, with real vegetables, in a real pot." The prospect is so exciting that you quicken your pace, eager to get home and start planning your first culinary feast. But then, you remember a small detail. You don't have vegetables. In fact, you barely have food. And you don't know how to cook much beyond soaking bread in water. "Okay," you correct mentally. "I'll make boiled water." It's a start. On the way, you encounter Oswaldo returning from his field. "How was your day?" he asks. "Productive," you respond honestly. "Very productive. And you?" "Normal. I fought with the tools, fought with the earth, fought with a scarecrow that seems to be judging me." The usual. You walk together in companionable silence for a few minutes. "And your invisible consultants?" Oswaldo asks with an ironic smile. "They were relocated," you say diplomatically. "Project completed successfully." "Of course it was," he responds, clearly thinking you've gone completely mad. If only he knew the truth. You arrive home with the sun setting on the horizon, exhausted but strangely satisfied. It was one of the most bizarre days of your life, but also one of the most productive. First, you take care of basic needs. Put the tools aside, carefully, so as not to offend possible observing rats. Wash your hands and face in the questionable water from the bucket, and sit to contemplate your new acquisition. The pot looks even more impressive in the golden light of the sunset. It's old and has some rust spots, but it's solid and functional. For you, it's like winning the medieval lottery. Well, you say to the pot, how about we test your abilities? You fill the pot with water from the bucket, taking care to strain out the bigger pieces of, you prefer not to speculate what they are, and place it over the fire. The fire itself is another challenge. You don't have a stove, obviously. You have a small outdoor fire made with stones and wood that you collect when you have time. Lighting the fire requires specialized medieval equipment: 2 stones, dry straw, and lots of patience. Clack, clack, clack. You hit the stones together, trying to create sparks. After 15 minutes of attempts, you finally get a small flame that quickly dies. Clack, clack, clack. Another 15 minutes. Another small flame lasting 3 seconds. Come on! You yell at the stones. Cooperate with me! Oswaldo, passing near your house, shouts, Fire problems? The stones are on strike, you respond. Try talking lovingly to them. Does that work? It works with everything else in medieval life. You look at the stones with a new perspective. Please, dear stones, you say in a soft tone, I really need fire to cook. Would a small spark be possible? Clack. A spark? A decent spark. Thank you, stones, you celebrate, quickly placing dry straw over the spark. In a few minutes, you have a respectable fire. The pot is over the flames, and the water begins to heat slowly. I'm cooking, you announce to the universe, officially cooking. While the water heats, you ponder what to add to your first official soup. Your available ingredients are limited. Old bread, which could serve as a thickener. Onion, which you know is aromatic and tear-inducing. The seeds the rats gave you. Dubious origin, but it was a gift. Some herbs you're not sure are edible or poisonous. Let's start conservatively. You decide, just onion and bread. You cut the onion with your dull knife, a process that results in abundant tears and several small finger wounds. Each piece of onion is irregular and different sizes, as if it had been cut by someone using their feet. When the water starts making small bubbles, you add the onion. The aroma rising from the pot is surprisingly pleasant. It smells like real food, not just nutritional substance to avoid death. My God, you exclaim, this smells like food. You get so excited that you do a little victory dance around the fire. Romualdo, your domestic pet rat, comes out of his burrow to investigate the strange noises you're making. Romualdo, you announce, I'm cooking, really cooking. Romualdo observes you with what can be interpreted as paternal pride, or possibly concern for your mental sanity. After a few minutes, you add torn pieces of bread to the pot. They slowly dissolve, creating a texture that can generously be called stew. The smell continues improving. You feel like a first-class medieval chef. Maybe I should add the rat's seeds, you ponder. After all, they understand food. You add some small seeds to the mixture. Immediately, the aroma changes to something more complex, almost perfumed. Incredible, you celebrate. The seeds are seasoning. After a few more minutes of cooking, you decide your masterpiece is ready. With religious solemnity, you take a wooden bowl, cracked but functional, and serve your first homemade soup. The liquid is cloudy and has pieces floating artistically. The smell is rich and complex. For someone who has been living on stale bread and raw onion, this is an imperial banquet. You raise the bowl as if it were a sacred chalice. To my new life, you toast alone, to interspecies cooperation, and to discovering that I can, eventually, learn to cook. The first spoonful is revealing. The flavor is real. It has depth. It has complexity. The onions are soft and sweet. The bread created a rich and satisfying texture. The seeds added small flavor explosions that you can't identify, but definitely appreciate. "This is food!" you shout to the night sky. "Real food!" You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful, analyzing each flavor. It's like a gastronomic scientific experiment. Romualdo approaches, clearly interested in the smell. "Want to try?" you offer, placing a few drops on a small stone. Romualdo sniffs cautiously, then tries a little. His small eyes light up with rodent approval. "Even the rats approve of my cooking," you exclaim proudly. "This may officially be the best meal of your life." Satisfied and with your stomach fuller than it's been in weeks, you sit to contemplate the implications of this culinary discovery. "If I can make soup," you reason, "I can make other things. Maybe even rich broth or stew with meat, assuming you ever have access to meat." You begin making elaborate plans to expand your culinary repertoire. Experiment with different herb combinations. Try fermenting things. You don't know much about what or how, but it seems important. Maybe even try baking something in the pot. Develop a flavor classification system. "I could become the most famous chef in the region," you fantasize. "People would come from distant villages to taste my onion and bread soup." Romualdo observes you with what is definitely an expression of "don't get too carried away." "You're right," you admit. "Better start small. First master basic soup, then move on to more ambitious adventures." As you clean the pot with water and a cloth, a process that requires extreme care not to scratch your precious new acquisition, you begin thinking about tomorrow. The field is prepared and ready for planting. You have a functional pot. You have an established commercial partnership with a colony of consultant rats. And now you have basic culinary skills. Maybe, you think optimistically, medieval life isn't so bad after all. Then you remember you still sleep in a flea-infested straw bed, bathe with questionable water, and your only source of entertainment is conversations with rodents. "Okay," you correct, "it's still pretty bad, but it's improving." As night deepens, you perform your bedtime preparation routine with significantly better humor than usual. The wash with cold water doesn't seem so brutal today. The straw bed doesn't seem so uncomfortable. Even the fleas seem less aggressive, although this might be wishful thinking. You lie down and look at the cracked wooden ceiling where the familiar spiders continue their nocturnal activities. "Good night, Ariadne," you say to the larger spider. "Thanks for not falling on my face today." The spiders don't respond, but they also don't fall. You consider this diplomatic progress. As you close your eyes, you mentally relive the extraordinary events of the day. The rat invasion that turned into a commercial partnership, the archaeological discovery of the pot, the first successful culinary experiment, the efficiency of interspecies collaborative work. Definitely the most interesting day of my peasant career, you conclude. Outside, you can hear the familiar sounds of night, the wind whispering through the trees, small animals moving in the darkness, and the occasional distant scream of some neighbor having nightmares about feudal taxes. But today, these sounds seem less threatening and more comforting, as if you're finally starting to feel at home in this bizarre medieval world. Tomorrow, you plan as drowsiness takes over. I'll plant the seeds, and maybe make another soup. And who knows, maybe the rats will stop by for a courtesy visit. And with these pleasant thoughts, you finally fall asleep, dreaming of consultant rats, magical pots, and soups that make neighbors cry with envy. The rooster crows again, but this time you wake up with a different feeling. It's not exactly enthusiasm. That would be too much optimism for a medieval peasant. But it's something approaching. Hope. You get up from the straw bed. still uncomfortable but now familiar. Greet the ceiling spiders, who have become your unofficial roommates, and walk to the water bucket, still cold and questionable but necessary. As you wash, you look through the small window toward the field where yesterday you lived the most extraordinary adventure of your peasant life. Was it all real, you wonder? Or was it just a dream caused by heat stroke? But then you see the pot gleaming softly in the morning light, and you smile. Definitely real, you conclude. Today will be another day of hard work. There will be sweat, back pain, stubborn tools, and probably more unexpected encounters with local fauna. But now you have something you didn't have before. The certainty that even in the most monotonous and difficult life, extraordinary things can always happen. And who knows, maybe today you'll find more specialized consultants, or discover other buried treasures, or simply make even better soup. Good morning, medieval world, you declare as you prepare to leave. I'm ready for whatever you want to throw my way today. And so, our brave and slightly crazy peasant sets off for another day of adventures in medieval rural life, proving that with creativity, interspecies diplomacy, and a pinch of madness, even the simplest existence can become epic. The end. And so we end our journey through the life of a medieval peasant who discovered that true adventure isn't in fighting dragons or saving princesses, but in befriending rats, discovering buried pots, and learning that even the simplest soup can be a treasure when you know how to appreciate life's small victories. Moral of the story: never underestimate the power of cooperation, even if it's with rodents. And always keep your eyes open for archaeological opportunities in your backyard. Good night, and may your dreams be free of medieval fleas.